What's up, everyone? Today we're going to get into Basar and his buffs that he's receiving on the 5th. Will he be viable? Will he not? Now, as far as the buffs he's going to get, for you guys, this is Sandstorm, which is his, or excuse me, Hurricane, which is his 2. Actually, he's getting buffs to all his skills. Okay, well, we'll just go over the first one. First one right now, it is transfer 1 debuff from caster to the enemy, not that great. It's still going to retain that, and it's going to go to 75% when maxed, but it is also going to give an additional random debuff, which is going to be kind of cool. So, depending on if you're going to use them for PvE stuff, because that's about where the only place it's going to really be necessary, or useful rather. On his 2, it'll still do the same thing, but now it will have a 75% chance at max to decrease hit chance and attack. So a little bit of viability there. Kind of turns him into a mini Dizzy a little bit there, which we'll get to that later. And then his 3, this is where the big buff is coming. Not only is it going to dispel all buffs and make people unable to be buffed for 2 turns, but decreases combat readiness by 30%, which can be soul burn. They're taking the soul burn away from skill 2 and they're put on skill 3. For 20 souls, you can ignore effect resistance, which is actually going to be really key. Now, as far as his utility, he is going to definitely come into more PvP. You're going to see him a bit more in PvP, especially in guild battles, from what I can see, because he is a very hard counter with his 3 to any team that has an over-reliance on buffers. So Maid Chloe, Angelica, Crimson Armin, any heroes with those, this guy's just going to shut down pretty much instantly as long as he doesn't get stunned or resisted in some way. So what you're going to want to do with him, as far as skill upgrades go, to be perfectly honest, his damage, you can get it to a respectable level, and you're probably not going to need to upgrade his 3, as weird as that sounds, because none of it increases effect resistance, or decreases, or increases effect chance, rather. You do get a cooldown chance, but quite honestly, if this doesn't work your first turn, you're screwed in PvP, most likely. His 2, however, is something that I would definitely upgrade first, because after you cast his 3, his 2 is going to help you clean up against anyone that does a lot of damage by decreasing hit chance and attack chance once the buff completes. So that is definitely something I recommend getting, especially to 75% chance. So you can basically take down anybody, such as like an Arbiter Vildred, or someone that's just going to do a lot of burst damage real quick. That'll be the second skill you use once you dispel all of their like DN buffs or whatever's going on there. Now, as far as the artifact you're going to want to use, get over to here. There's a couple options, quite honestly. Abyssal Crown. You want to add some stun to your 2 AoE skills on your 2 and your 3. You don't do that, you can of course do Sira Ren, which will inflict random debuffs. And if you happen to have a Tangahal's Max Magic book, you can get that 20 souls at the beginning of a stage. So depending on what you're doing, whether you're running like a Dizzy, or you're running this guy, or maybe you're running them both, you can pick and choose. Okay, I want Dizzy to take 2 turns first, or I want this guy to have 0% chance to get resisted on the combat pushback, as well as the dispel and the unable to be buffed debuff. So, kind of some stuff to play with right there for you guys. Now, as far as what you're going to want to gear him with, you are definitely going to want this guy to survive and definitely want him to get his turn 1 off. So I'm going to suggest giving him the immunity set, which is a 2 set, as well as some survivability. So you're going to want to amp his life, possibly twice, depending on what you can do with his effect resist, because he is going to need to be able to get his 2 off after he casts his 3. So whatever you can do to make this guy tanky enough, depending on how your substats go, who you're running with. Are you running with a tank with Aris, someone with Taunt, someone that buffs you and gives you lots of barriers and defense buff and that type of thing? Depending on what you're running them with, you're going to adjust accordingly. But overall, you definitely want to have that immunity, and then it's your choice of life, effect resistance, whatever you're going to want to do after that fact. And that's pretty much going to be your guide for PvP Basar, guys. A lot of you are probably asking me, well, why not the speed set? Well, the reason you don't run, at least not a super fast speed set, you can still do like a slower speed set, but he's going to have to go after Angelica, or after Maid Chloe, or whoever it is, and generally they are not the top tier speed sets that most people put into PvP. Top tier speed sets are usually reserved for attackers or someone that does combat readiness boosts / buffing for the team. So Basar is going to have to go after all that's already done. So up until that point, he's going to have to survive, which is why I suggested the things I suggested earlier. And at that point, hopefully, you know, if you run into a tanky team, it'll be really easy, just like a pure tanky stall team. It'll be really easy to smash, especially someone like Angelica, who's water, who he has the elemental advantage against. And now, if you run into someone that is more of like a cleave team or a one-shot team, then that's when you're going to need to get your Basar tankier. And especially, like I said, in Guild Battle, the 3v3 PvP, he should shine there definitely against a lot of the defensive teams that are just set up to stall. And that's pretty much going to be it, guys, for your Basar guide. Now, as far as PvE goes, the only way I could see this guy being super useful in PvE, in most cases, there's always going to be niche examples. His one, if you're running him with Sarah Wren, which is the artifact that puts up extra debuffs, I think at a 50% click, because you got your 2 AoEs you're going to be able to utilize, but then also his one's going to be transferring up to 2 debuffs per turn, and possibly 3 if the Sarah Wren or the Abyssal Crown's going off with that stun. And you can kind of use him as just like a super gimp, anti-boss type guy. You're fighting against something that's really crazy, and especially once raid boss comes around, whenever that comes around, if you're able to debuff the raid boss, I could actually see Basar being pretty instrumental there as far as keeping the raid boss from killing you right away. Now, if it turns out to be one of those things like the new dungeon, the Trial of Fates, or whatever the hell it's called, where, you know, at the end they just get a buff where they basically almost one-shot you, you know, for people coming up, not established players, then that's just the way it is. That Smilegate has decided that you will die no matter what. But overall, though, Basar is going to be a really solid unit in the meta. Let me know if you guys already run them, or if you're planning on running them, what you're planning on doing with them, and I will see you guys during the next video. Peace out.